Yatagarasu is a 3-minute extreme hell demon that was started by Riot, Wreckage, Viprin and other GeoStorm members and was created to be the new disproportionately hardest demon. The whole point was that it had to be the hardest as it was a follow-on in stature to Bloodbath, which stayed as number 1 on the list for a whole year and was unbeaten by anyone for a solid 9 months. Yatagarasu was unveiled before Bloodbath had even recorded its first victor, and the initial previews prepared us for an absolutely menacing, borderline impossible demon, and at 3 minutes long, this was breaking the ranks of the usual extreme demons at the time. In mid-year 2016, Riot began to play less and dropped Yatagarasu, handing it over to Serve, who was currently the best player in the world. Serve played it on and off for a while, investing over 20,000 attempts in a very similar, equally as extreme version. However, the pressure and publicity of this new number 1 demon with the huge weight of expectation began to break his spirit, and so in late August he quit GD before picking Truster to verify the level. Truster spent about 5 months practicing it, but the main talking point were the nerfs that he and the team put in place to make the level bearable and possible. People were already unfairly underselling and writing it off when Truster received it, but the nerfing controversy became an even bigger issue in late 2016 when Truster began to struggle too much and so further nerfed the level. Around this time, to everybody's surprise, Sonic Wave came into the mix too to become the new hardest demon, a raise of the GD difficulty bar nobody could have expected so soon. Truster's Yatagarasu was verified in mid-January last year and the nerfs were very apparent. What was set to be the hardest, most unbeatable demon ever was dwarfed to a fraction of its initial potential and was beaten within a day. As a result, besides Blade of Justice, Mystic and a few others, Yatagarasu was without a doubt one of the most disappointing levels of 2017. Since then, the level has been in freefall on the demons list, only maintaining the number 1 spot for a short period before starting to tumble down the list as more people got their hands on it. In the first half of 2017, it was moved below Sonic Wave, a level it was specifically meant to be harder than, and as it turned out then, the list moderators had plans to move it sooner but maintained it to prevent backlash. In the latter half of the year, Wushi999 became the first player to beat both Yatagarasu and Erebus and declared Erebus to be his new hardest demon. Almost straight away, Yatagarasu was dropped again, reaching a lowly 3rd on the list, well ahead of its time. This was particularly symbolic as Yatagarasu, a 3-minute level, was ousted by Erebus, a level only a 1/3 of the total length of Yatta. Since this period, we've also had Stalemate Redux and Digital Descent placed above it, with Stalemate Redux being moved now thanks to Wushi's input on the difficulty, and Digital Descent being dramatically dropped in a place re-evaluation. Now, Plasma Pulse Finale and Gamma are 2 new additions above Yatagarasu, pushing it to a very low 5th place only 1 year after release. Bloodbath was still at number 1 in this point in its history. However, people are now beginning to wonder if we were too harsh on the level just because of the stigma of nerfs. Back when the top 3 was a relatively unbroken trio of Erebus, Sonic Wave and Yatagarasu, Rampage, one of the first players to beat all 3, came out after completing Erebus and claimed Yatagarasu should be number 1, also implying that Erebus wasn't as hard as first assumed, as it was merely frustrating thanks to its inconsistencies that gave it the illusion of being harder. It wasn't just a more recent opinion either. Despite all the players who claimed Erebus harder than Yatagarasu, Blast CFB, an Argentinian legend of the game who quit pretty much straight away after beating Yatagarasu, claimed it was his hardest level of his career. Sonix also struggled on this level massively, but everybody presumed Sonic Wave was harder for the wide disparity of attempts between his completions of the 2. Since then, Wushi has changed his mind about Erebus being harder and has also alluded to the fact that perhaps it was the frustration that created the illusion of it being harder, claiming he suffered on Yatagarasu for almost double the amount of time he did with Erebus. Since the 2 rising starlets of GD have changed their tunes, the community has begun to as well, and the prospect of Yatagarasu being raised is an increasingly backed one by the fans. I don't usually cast opinions on difficulty debates anymore, but I will say that I think Plasma Pulse Finale is definitely harder, and the hardest demon in the game, but with that said, I would be open to the possibility of Yatagarasu being raised to as high as 2nd place. With the top 5 now, you can interchange the levels and mix them up and still have a pretty accurate, comprehensive order no matter the order they're in, as they are all so close to the difficulty of each other that any order is plausible to some degree. However, the idea that Yatagarasu at 5th place is massively underselling it is an increasingly popular belief from many around the community. One reason Yatagarasu may now be considered harder than Erebus is because Erebus has had time to manifest into the community now. I'll talk more about this in the GD difficulty paradox video, but when a new type of gameplay comes out, it's far harder because people have not had a chance to get used to it. We'd never really seen inconsistent and buggy gameplay deliberately used to create difficulty like on Erebus's scale before, and no one was used to this type of level, and thus many players were left completely caught out by it. Since then, however, not only have people had time to get used to this kind of gameplay, but we've also had Devil Vortex thrown into the mix to allow for further experience of this kind of gameplay. Now we've had time to get used to this kind of gameplay, it's far less daunting and menacing. As well as this, I've said a few times throughout the video, Erebus is frustrating more than anything. The inconsistencies, bugs, timings, they grind attempts and eat away at a player's patience far more than a consistent level like Yatagarasu does. This can give a level a feeling of being harder instead of more than just annoying. Another thing that might provide clarity on why Yatagarasu is underrated is Sonic Wave. As I mentioned in the Red World video, Sonic Wave only relies on one gameplay type primarily for its difficulty, the wave. Yatagarasu on the other hand has a massive range of gameplay styles, not just the standard cube, ship and ball parts but also swing copters, robot parts and other such abstract types. Over the test of time, as the difficulty of these two levels has plateaued, it is reasonable to say that Sonic Wave's difficulty has dropped more. The one gameplay type it relies on has become more easily attainable than having to master many different styles of play for something like Yatagarasu. It is also very reasonable to say that not only is Yatagarasu harder than Sonic Wave now, but that Sonic Wave was harder than Yatagarasu back in January last year, and both these statements are correct in my opinion. It's simply the progression of the game and the evolution of gameplay that has allowed both these statements to be true. A similar thing happened to Bloodbath. Last year it was super hard and above Hatred, but with Straightfly having plateaued so much more than other gameplay types, Bloodbath is now dwarfed and Hatred is now deemed harder when it never used to be. Bloodbath is the longer level, but it is now lower on the list because one of the main gameplay types that comprises its difficulty has fallen so much faster than other types. I think something we need to address is that Sonic Wave may actually, in fact, be massively overrated. I think people are starting to realise this, but it's literally the stigma that is keeping this level in such high regards. It's like Sakupen Hell. With one game mode primarily, it stands to reason that it will get easier faster, yet the stigma of the level coming from such an impossible reputation is keeping it so high. Plasma Pulse Finale above Sonic Wave is by far the right choice in my opinion, but I now also think even Gamma and Erebus could go above it thanks to its monotype difficulty. It is depreciating at a much faster rate than the levels around it, including Yatagarasu. Maybe Yatagarasu cannot go above Plasma Pulse Finale, but it could easily go as high as 3rd in my opinion. Sonic Wave in fact could go as low as 5th, and I think list editors would still be onto something. I never used to feel this way, but on studying the situation more in detail and gathering the opinions of these top players and trying to determine the correlation, I think Yatagarasu could stand to be moved up a few spots. Yatagarasu has also had anti-stigma for a long time now, with the reputation for the nerfs that has been damaging it and damaging Truster's reputation as well. But I do now believe it is being underrated next to Sonic Wave and Erebus simply for the nerf stigma and the nerf debate around the community. But that's just my opinion. Gamma is a new level that has come into the mix recently, and I do believe it is harder. I haven't seen any evidence of this, but I imagine there's a portion of the community that will think it could be first, and I also think it is harder than Sonic Wave. An interesting fact here is that Sonic's actually spent more attempts on Gamma than he did on Plasma Pulse Finale. I think Gamma at 3rd is pretty underrated as well. It could be at least 2nd, and I do believe in the end Sonic Wave will be dropped several places in comparison to other levels, as this happened to loads of other Circles levels, including Crimson Clatter, Catastrophic, Future Circles and even Bowser Vortex to an extent. They all started life much higher than their proportional places in the list now and have been moved down more as more people have beaten them and wave skill across the player spectrum has increased. So eventually, and again this is something I'll be covering in the Paradox video, Sonic Wave will, in my opinion, be moved down several spots in comparison to where it is now, and I think not only Gamma but Yatagarasu will triumph over it too. As for Erebus, well, that's on the side of being too short to stand the test of time in my opinion, but we'll have to wait and see where that place is in the end. What do you think on the subject? I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. However, if you agreed with this video, please don't spam or harass Liz moderators over it. They have a much more realistic opinion than me, and this video is built on speculation. They do way more work, and at the end of the day, we must respect their choice far more than mine. Anyway, that's the end of the video, and I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please smash that like button, and if you're new around here, if you could consider subscribing, then it would really help me out. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you all soon.